Hey now, welcome to the Dirty Side of the Track, America's leading Formula One podcast. I'm Brian, that's Rob. Today was the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. I don't think it was as good as it could have been, and we're going to get there in a minute. But Rob, welcome, buddy.
Yeah, thanks. I'm gonna say that's a king of understatement, but you're right. We will get there later because the race was, well, I think you added a question to our 100 Seconds of DRS, which was New Year's Eve, big deal or nothing burger, and the Azerbaijan GP was a nothing burger with a side order of nothing.
Oh my
So
God.
we'll get there. We'll get there because
Yeah.
there were some things that I quite enjoyed that we can pick out of the weekend. As a weekend, it had its ups and downs. It's just unfortunately one of the big downs happened a few hours ago. So we got news and social, as always, which includes Brian's video vault, which looks like it's an absolute banger edition today. So you've been busy. And
Have
then
you
we'll
ever
kind
been
of
curious about what's inside James Vowles' fridge? Because I got news.
which is also more exciting than the race. And then we've got the race weekend. We're probably going to have some decent discussion around our thoughts on the new format because, yeah, okay, I'm not gonna spoil it. There is one heck of a SAP stats coming. So I mean, when the race isn't that exciting, it allows Brian to go hunting for stats. So I'm
We
going to let
also
you guys
haven't had a
decide if
race
that's a
in a
good thing or not.
month. And I've been waiting to really dig into some stats. So we are going to cover the field with stats
I love
today.
it. I love SAP stats, and this is a big one. We've
I
got
have
Pitlane
some that
Paul.
might make you cry, by the way. I've kept some
That's
dry that you
okay.
haven't seen, and it's about Ferrari.
Well, they won't make me.
I'll
We've got
try.
Pitlane Paul. We've got a couple of in the marbles entries. So thank you for the people that submitted their in the marbles entries. Um, we've got a fantasy update. Is the point of points updated by now?
Only on individual teams as of.
Okay. And then we got DRS with Justin. We had a great chat with him in the middle of the week. And then the Miami preview as racing comes stateside again. So, whew, let's jump right in. Trying to make it sound exciting when the race wasn't. So,
We're doing what we can.
exactly. Right. First up, AlphaTauri have announced that Tost is going to be replaced by Mekis. Mikis?
Laurent
Mikes?
Mekies, yeah, I think.
Yeah, let's go with that. He's the current Ferrari sporting director, and he's going to come in and take the reins up at 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 the end of the season. Peter Bayer will be the AlphaTauri CEO. He's been a long-serving exec within the FIA and led the inquiry into Abu Dhabi 2021. So I'm not quite sure what to make of him, but he's coming over to AlphaTauri at the end of the year. Now, I just put this next one in, but you went way deeper than I did. I just kind of wanted to float out that there were two Charles stories doing the round this week. There was the whole, is he going to Mercedes next year?
No.
But is he going to start a music career instead? Because he dropped a music track, which seems to be doing all right. And you actually went and listened to it.
I did. You didn't?
No, couldn't be bothered with that. Listen to Charles play the piano, but go on, tell me about
That's
it.
actually what it is. It's like 4 minutes of him just playing the piano to some instrumental backing. I don't know why it's on the top of the charts. It's in the top 10 on iTunes. I don't get it. It's not bad, but for everybody, whoever found themselves at about the age of 12 in front of a piano and had nothing else to do in some relative's house, and you started just making melodic, kind of rhythmic notes on the piano, and you thought to yourself, yeah, this could be a song. That happened with Charles. It's not bad, don't get me wrong. It's a good song, but it's basically just him coming up with kind of like some tunes and then people playing violin and things behind it. Yeah, all right. I mean, this whole episode, can we title this entire episode Nothing Burger? Because his song, and I love Charles. I mean, everyone knows I have a man crush on him. Nothing Burger. Sorry.
And what do you think of the Mercedes rumor? Another nothing burger?
Yeah, that's
Are
not
we got a
happening
plate
either.
of double nothing burger on here right now?
Yeah, I mean, do you want me to report from the rumor mill? Because I will, because right now that's about all we got going.
Well, you missed an opportunity. We could have had the helicopter out again. I do love the rumor mill. Oh, I can't even speak. I can't speak. We had a red flag change for Baku, which went under the radar. I just randomly found it on Twitter and apologized to whoever it was that I found it. I think it might have been motorsport.com, but we didn't get a red flag today, but a lot of the drivers all got together in some kind of big powwow and they sent their chief spokesperson George out to go and say crikey at the rules for a while. And It's not a
Blimey.
big thing, but it's a small change that apparently would get away from the chaos that we saw at Australia, which is that instead of them, apparently I didn't even realize this, when they go out to the formation lap in Australia, the safety car leads them round. So they're going like really slow behind the safety car,
Right.
then they line up on the grid, which isn't what happens at the beginning of the race because formation lap is led by the lead driver, right? You just see them go
Right.
around, they warm their tires up, they zigzag, and they do whatever. Safety car's now going to leave the pits 30 seconds before the pack with its lights out, meaning it's not in control of race pace to try to mimic a normal formation lap so they can heat the tires up and not go ice skating into each other. But we didn't even get to see that today because they couldn't even bother to crash into each other. So
It was a mess. So a quick silly season note. Last week I predicted a relatively quiet silly season for drivers. This note is for any female listeners. My wife is so angry with me for setting the alarm clock twice on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, to get up early. I might be looking to change teams here soon, or at least I may be told to. So if anyone's interested in having a second boyfriend, give me a call. Because it's thin. Speaking of ice, I'm on thin ice over here. The 5:30 a.m. wake-up call, the 5:30 alarm clock this morning was not well received on a Sunday.
which I'm fine with, but let me just back up a minute. You're not looking for a single lady. You just said if anyone's looking for a second boyfriend, so
Yeah,
you're pitching yourself into people that have already got fellas.
whatever.
Let's move on before we go down that rabbit
The
hole. Let's
video
open up the
vault.
door to Brian's
I
video
wasn't
vault,
kidding.
which you still don't have. You still
Yeah,
don't have.
I've
theme
tried.
music
I
for.
haven't
Come
found a
on.
good one. Inside James Vowell's fridge on the Williams channel. That's a real video. It's a short. You don't want to go watch it. It's boring. Second, I did see it was a really special day. Lewis Hamilton discusses going undercover to watch his brother race. It's on Sky Sports F1. It's 3 minutes. It's fun. It's heartwarming. It's clearly not a mandatory video, but if you're interested, it was neat to see this. I enjoyed it. Yuki Tsunoda's restaurant dream behind the visor on the AlphaTauri channel. It's 2 minutes. Hard pass. Don't watch it. Just save your time. He wants to open a restaurant, but he doesn't want to be the chef. Why on God's green earth would he think he's going to be the chef in his own restaurant? Is he that young? Like oh, I'm going to open a restaurant and I'll cook everything. What? Why do we want you to... Anyway, don't watch. F1 drivers' private jets on Kim Illman's channel. It's 10 minutes. You can pass unless you're kind of curious about how people commute to and from the race and the way they use private jets. There's only one driver who actually owns their private jet. It's Max at this point. Lewis has long since sold his jet. But it is kind of interesting. Some of the drivers have relationships with like fractional ownership private jets. But again, you could definitely pass. However, I've got a couple here that are good. So everyone get ready. One, the Anagram Tower Challenge on the Haas channel. 4 minutes long. There's only a few thousand views on this thing, so it's a small club of us who have watched it. It is Kevin and Nico playing Jenga, and then as they pull the Jenga piece out, there's an anagram of a driver name. And it's kind of fun, and I enjoyed it. So if you have 4 minutes, I'd recommend it. And then one other one, Lewis and George play table tennis, Mercedes channel. It's a short. I'd recommend this one too. Just stay for the whole minute. You saw this?
Yeah.
I liked how it ended, and I'm not going to spoil it.
No, and I'm not going to say either, but I did enjoy that. It's like I say, it's a short. It's a minute that you're not going to regret. It's cool.
All right, and we'll have the links to all these in the show notes. The last couple are a few items here. Just a couple avoids for you. The Cognizant Driver Masterclass, the first lap on the Aston Martin channel. It's the worst video I've seen in a while. It's 1 minute long. It is literally Cognizant corporate rah-rah material. But they decided to put it on the F1 channel. It's Fernando and Jessica Hawkins and Pedro de la Rosa, and I'm thinking this will be great. It was a turd. It was basically just platitudes telling people to work hard, effectively. Oh, the first lap is endurance, enthusiasm, excitement. And, I'm like, what is this mess? You should put all these words on a poster and put it up in my house because my wife loves those things. And then Lollipop Man, Rob, you're a big Lollipop Man fan. He had the black arrows equals silver arrows super facts on the Lollipop Man channel, and I don't think you've seen this one yet.
I haven't yet. No, I changed job and I've had a busy week, and I just didn't get round to consuming any video other than that. I saw that short of the table tennis.
Well, I'd recommend this one, and then the last two on the F1 channel. Never Have I Ever. This one's actually from last Saturday, so I didn't get it in last week because we were so focused on the Slap House video, which don't worry is coming back. Never Have I Ever, episode 1, Formula 1. It is funny. Check it out. Pierre's answer, about 2/3 in, is priceless, especially because the off-camera commentary. You'll see what I mean when you get. And the last one of the bumper crop of Video Vault is every 2023 driver's most iconic team radio moments. Okay, just a note. Like, you would think these would all be like positive things. For Charles Leclerc, who has won races, has many pole positions, he does his own music. I mean, at the end of the day, this is the video that the team radio they played for him.
I am stupid. I am stupid.
What? They did him dirty. And then for Nico, they did this one when he crashed.
I'm hanging here like a cow.
But they played the rest of it. Fire, there's fire. Get me out of here. Like, come on. If I were those two guys and saw this, I'd be a little pissed that was the best radio they could get from me. But anyhow.
Well, the title doesn't say best. It says iconic. That is always going to be... I mean, that I am stupid, unfortunately, until Charles does something that's more iconic than that. I mean, it is.
You're telling me it's more iconic than this at this point?
No! Well, it's a flip of a coin, isn't it? And neither of them are great.
I mean, he has a lot of them. Like, I would have played this one instead of...
Wait, what are these tires?
Sorry, it's a mistake.
Sorry. Anyway, moving on.
Oh, man. Right, wow. That was a bumper crop. And that thanks for all the work you're going to cause me to put all those URLs in the show notes. So thanks, Brian.
I do the work, watching the video, so
I know.
Other
well,
people
you
don't
think they
have to.
magically get in there, and in fairness to you, I know I haven't usually watched them because also you only start building the list of them about like 5 minutes before we start recording the show. But I do try to watch most of them during the week. But bizarrely, I get drawn to the ones that you've told me to or told everybody to pass on because it's like. I don't know. There's some kind of morbid curiosity of like, is it really that bad? And then I watch it and go, yeah, Brian's right. I shouldn't have watched that.
Promise me you'll send a note on the Cognizant one then.
Okay, I will. I will WhatsApp you later in the week once I've watched it. Okay. The door to the vault is now closed. Secret combination is activated, and we can move on to race weekend. So we had race weekend for the first time. And we got a new format for the sprint announced that kind of felt like they were making it up as they were going along when they just kind of dropped it on us. It hadn't been like announced like 4 weeks ago when they just came in and went, nope, it's a new format. Friday now will be qualifying for the race on Sunday. Saturday will now be a self-contained event where you'll have qualifying for the sprint and the sprint itself. One practice line. You don't like this format, do you?
I like it more than after it was announced. So that's why
Okay.
I didn't go crazy on Twitter or other I just said one of the two of us didn't like the format as it was announced. I did want to give it time to see it. It had some redeeming qualities, but no, I still don't like it.
And I've got splinters in my butt cheeks because I'm sitting on the fence. I don't know which way to go at the moment, and I'm going to throw this out there, and then people can just like harass me on social media. But I like standalone Saturday. I do. However, and this is me being a bit of an F1 snob. I know it is. I do like to look back over previous drivers' records, and I know when we kind of look back at like points totals from the past, you have to adjust them for 25 for a win versus 10 for a win, and all that kind of stuff. But the sprint thing skews it even worse for me, and it's not the pure Grand Prix, right? It's this new sprint thing. I would be up for a separate sprint championship where the points for the sprint do not count towards the WDC, and you have the Drivers' Championship just settled by Grand Prix races, and if you win that, then you're the best Grand Prix full-length driver of the season, and if you manage to pull it out the fire on sprint weekends only, you could win. It'll be a lesser one because there aren't as many, and it's not as highly sought after, but you'd have a sprint championship as well. And then I really really put this over the edge and then let you come in and like just smash me in the face with my comments. I think you'd even be able to find a way of mandating even that maybe the reserve drivers get some action in the sprint weekends as well.
No problems with that.
So, okay. So what do you think to a separate sprint championship?
I mean, here's my problem with the way it's set up, and it kind of feeds into your ideas. First off, I don't like the disconnected nature that Saturday means nothing for Sunday, but yet points come of it. But yet you put yourself at risk of ruining the car for the Sunday. However, it's basically like two very similar formats run in a very disjointed fashion. Friday to Sunday is very similar to Saturday, but Saturday's in between Friday and Sunday, but the Saturdays don't mean anything for Sunday. So it's like you have a double quali because they're the same formats, just one's a little shorter. I actually preferred the shorter, but that's okay. I didn't like the tire rules. That was dumb. Why medium, medium, soft? Or as Bernie would say, medium, medium, soft. Could we go hard, medium, soft? And if you're going to make them run the tires, why do they have to be new? Why did Lando not get to run and shoot out SQ3 because he didn't have a set of new softs? Let him run new softs.
That drives me nuts.
Stupidity of this rule.
Or if Saturday is going to be self-contained,
Yeah.
have their own tire allocation for sprints.
Even better. Thank you very much. So I don't get those parts. The reason it's disconnected feels weird to me, but counts, is like imagine going to, here in the States, an NFL game, a football game. And it's amazing. There's 17 a year. They're valuable and important. And you go watch the game, and then at halftime, they go, you know what? Hang on a second. We've got a demonstration of both teams coming out and playing 5-minute quarter that matters nothing for the game today, but will count towards the end of the year. What? Why on earth would you do that? And so that's what this felt like to me. And I'm not saying I disliked it because I love cars on track, but sometimes less is more. Sometimes the value of the race is important. If you told me it were reserve drivers and everyone got to put one car out there on Saturday and you could collect the data and you could see what was going on and you could see your reserve drivers battling it out, shoot, bring back the T car, have an extra car that you had to use for this weekend or have as backup so the teams didn't have to go through this. I just didn't get it. And the last thing I'll say is we duplicated quali. Then we had the same race, effectively just a shorter version, and the results were very similar. Like Charles was on pole both times, and then you saw a Red Bull, you saw Sergio win both races. Like by the real race, it was boring and I was tired. I'm done.
Yeah. This is why I get when you take a stand back and they want to try to get entertainment over all 3 days and something counts on all 3 days. I can kind of go along with that. I think, Paul has often, Pitlane Paul, our guy on the inside, has always said that, like, forever practice is just boring. And then everyone's just waiting for quali in the race and, like, a million practice sessions and then quali in the race. It did need a bit of a shake-up. But, yeah, I'm with you. I just think, just one car on track. So just 10 cars battling it out in a sprint. So you both reduce the length of the race and reduce the number of competitors and just let the reserve drives have at it and just have it as its own standalone sprint championship. And then everyone's happy because Max only needs to race in the proper Grand Prix. I don't know.
And Tommy Bellingham's idea where maybe for the quali, making it a little more different from the regular quali where everyone gets one lap.
Yeah,
pretty cool too.
That would be pretty cool as well, like a one-lap shootout. So if you're so I like the fact that they're trying to shake it up a little bit. This doesn't quite feel like it hit the mark. I hate the sprint result being the grid. I hate it. If you are fastest in quali for the Grand Prix, you should start on pole position. And I know I'm old school about that, but I hate the sprint format setting it. So that was a plus for me that it didn't.
I agree, but that also meant that Kevin Magnussen will be the only person in history to take a pole position without starting first on the grid. If you remember Brazil last year,
yeah,
he was
definitely.
pole, lost the sprint, didn't win the sprint, and so started the race wherever, 8th or something like that.
Well, yeah, I think it was 8th. So, that'll be a pub quiz question in years to come. So anyway, let's get into the race weekend. Practice, because it was only the one practice, and they felt like they were trying to cram a little bit of everything in to kind of cover off both being prepared for the sprint and for qualis and for race. It did feel a bit more manic. Now, it'd be interesting to hear later on we hear from Paul to see if he touches on it, but I don't know what the view from the inside would be like from the teams, because was it just pointless? Was there just too much going on that they didn't get any data? I don't know, but I thought it was quite enjoyable. I did like it when Gasman turned his car into a chimney.
He had the worst weekend. I mean, can you have a worse weekend? They extended the weekend and it all went crap for him all at once. I feel bad for Pierre. That was because then the quali went poorly for him too.
Yeah, I mean, quali we got.
So this is quali for the real race. This is Friday.
Quali for real race. This is Friday
afternoon.
qualifying, which
was morning for us.
morning for us, which I did get to see most of, actually. So De Vries decided to bin it into the wall, and we got a red flag.
Also, bad weekend for De Vries. Did he find out you put him in on fantasy? He knew that, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Gasly decided he liked the look of what De Vries did, so he repeated it and he threw it in there. K-Mag had to withdraw because the car was just a hunk of junk to drive. It was just, it was a war of attrition, Q1. We were trying to build this drama of like, who's going to get through? It's like, well, like 3 or 4 of them are already back in. They ain't going anywhere. So
one or two. Hulk
I think it was only Hulk and Zhou that lost out, and Leclerc kind of put the fastest time down. Q2 was bit of a nothing burger that it just until right at the end when I wasn't really paying attention to the leaderboard and realised that George dropped out.
Yeah,
I don't even know why. Was it just
he just wasn't
time
fast.
in, ran into traffic? Because he had good pace all weekend.
He had okay pace all weekend.
Yeah, I mean for the Merc, what I mean is in like race pace, he's obviously finished in the points, and he's done well in the sprint, and then he just completely messed this one up, and somehow both McLarens make it through into Q3. It was
Shocker.
like, oh, this could be a jumbled up race. This is going to be amazing. So talk about peaking too soon, but
yeah. Well, then in Q3, Max and Charles at the same time. Charles gets it. At this point, I was laughing pretty hard because the Aston Martins are having DRS issues. And I'm sitting here literally yelling at the TV, have you tried hitting it 50 times? You remember Max had the challenges last year? Mate, I've hit it 50 times. And they're like, well, stop on the button a little bit. But yeah, I mean, we had Charles, Max, Checo, Carlos, and Lewis set up at top for the race on Sunday. You know what? It was fine. Like, Quali Friday was fine. I had to watch it kind of disjointed because Central Time it started at 8 and I had meetings that I couldn't miss, and the red flags kept hosing me, pushing it further and further back. So anyway, that was Friday. And then we go to Saturday, the totally disconnected, unrelated to any other part of the weekend day, which was fun still, but could be better. SQ1, as they call it, the shootout. De Vries, man, into the barrier. Sargent bins it into the wall. And you know what? I got to give Logan a little note here on that one. When I was that last turn before you kind of come downhill onto the straight, I want to say it's 15 or so. There were 2 Ferraris right in front of him. And Charles was ahead of Carlos.
Yeah.
And he comes up on a flyer, and neither Ferrari is going quickly. And so as he turns the corner, he sees, and they're spread out. Carlos to the left, Charles to the right. Now, they got out of the way, so I'm not blaming the Ferraris. But as a rookie, your first race in Baku, do you remember, like, you know, some of the rookies we've seen over the years who struggle to get their settings right in Monaco and Baku because of the walls? He comes around, and Carlos bails under the apex to get out of the way. Again, he got out of the way. Charles took off a little bit, got out of the way of the corner. But then Logan basically turned into the wall effectively because he didn't know where these cars were going to be. And I think that was a rookie mistake in my mind. I don't blame Ferrari. He got distracted. I felt bad because he was doing pretty well. He was on a flyer.
Well, and the other talking people that was on a flyer, pretty sure I saw this right, was Sonoda that's coming down the straight, right down the straight. He's going to make it through into SQ2, and they drop the red flag when he must have been, 100 meters from the line?
Not even. They go red flag, and then just the profanities.
Oh, because he's out. I mean, he was in the drop zone, and he's on an absolute flyer that's definitely going to put him through to the next round. And that red flag, oh man, it was like if that had just dropped that red flag like 3 seconds later, probably even less, he's through. But we lost both Alphas. They did not have a good weekend, as in Alfa Romeos. Sonoda, as we just said, Gasly. I don't even think he got going. He just sat in the pits all the time and just watched everyone else, and De Vries spinned it. And obviously, Sargent was through. But there was a little bit of an issue trying to get him ready for SQ2, given that his car was in pieces.
Exactly. So we didn't have him in SQ2, and then we'll talk about this in a second. We didn't have Lando in SQ3 because of tires. So like we were never fully loaded in SQ2 or 3, or I guess 1 because of gas. So I loved, again, no DRS in SQ2 for Aston Martin, not consistently working. And at the end, we had Fernando towing Lance to get him into SQ3. Who is this Fernando Alonso guy we see out there? He's jolly and happy and dating Taylor Swift. And what's actually happening around here?
It was bizarre. It's like he actually went about helping Stroll through to the next round. Come with me if you want to live. But it was come with me if you want to come to SQ3. It's like just pulled him through, and it worked because he just popped him just above Piastri. So we had Piastri out, and Lando can't run. because of the no new softs, which we both think is ridiculous.
Well, the best part was McLaren, and again, you can't be this precise, but looking back in retrospect, it's easy to. Piastri was 11th, and Lando was 10th. So Lando was in but couldn't run, and Piastri was out but could have. Good job,
True.
McLaren. I mean, again, you can't fix that in the heat of the moment. Things are happening super fast. I don't blame McLaren at all, but when you looked at it, you're like, oh, if you could have reversed that, it would have.
Yeah, and then so through to SQ3, and really the main thing that happened was Leclerc was out on an absolute mission, set an absolute blistering lap, and then thought, I don't want anybody beating that, so he crashed into a wall.
I mean, we could say that, but it was a yellow, so it wasn't a red. Everyone had got around, I know, except Carlos, who, by the way, did he run this weekend? He was in witness protection. I don't even think Carlos Sainz played in this event.
No, he didn't. They just put the car into kind of like self-drive mode, and Carlo was just chilling.
I mean, didn't challenge anybody. Didn't get in any trouble. Just kind of did his thing back in like 7th the whole time, effectively. Charles did get pole for the sprint, and two things that I have to highlight. This is two things that tickled Brian's fancy. One, Willie T. Ribbs was back on Twitter, and he wrote, "Chuck is back." I had forgotten about this sound clip here.
Charles Chuck Leclerc.
Until right now. So when I saw that, Chuck is back, I'm like, Willie, don't ever change, my friend. Love it. And then they gave a hat to the shootout sprint SQ3 shootout qualifier winner. It was a black hat. And I don't know if a lot of people saw it because you had to kind of hang till right at the end of the telecast with splatter paint on it and a metallic silver Pirelli logo on it. It was so ugly and fantastic at the same time. I would kill for this hat. I would wear it proudly, and I might go buy one for $85,000, whatever F1 charges for merch nowadays. And did you see this hat, Rob? Did it come?
No, I didn't. I'm gonna have to go and Google this. So
I think I saved a picture of my TV. If I did, I'll send it out on Twitter. And it got me thinking about hats. I ordered an old school Goodyear hat, just as an aside. When Senna, who now that we're 1 day away from the anniversary of his passing, he was always on the podium in those Goodyear hats. You remember with the big bar logo?
Yeah.
I found one from the 93 Spanish GP, and it may say first place on the side, which was technically, I think, Prost, and Senna was second. But to me, it's my Senna hat because he always wore it. And so it's on its way, and I should have it by Canada.
Oh, my gosh. That'll be something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'd had two sets of qualies now. We'd kind of gone quali to quali, and both qualies had gone the same way. We got Chuck nailing pole. So off we went to the sprint race then, later on Saturday. Now, the most exciting thing of the entire weekend really kind of happened in corner 2.
And 3, but 2, yes.
Yeah, but 2. So George got all feisty, and I don't think did anything wrong. I think two cars went into a corner, both deciding they weren't going to yield. George is on a very tight line on the inside of corner 2, which he's basically saying, I've got the apex, so you're going to have to yield, because if you don't yield, we're going to hit each other. Max will know he's going to get hit, but he's also somebody who's not going to yield either. So I just saw two very strong-minded drivers saying, this is my corner, you need to get the hell out of here. And they didn't, and they collided. And George left a little bit of a hole, little love tap in the side of Max's car, and on they went. And it didn't get Stewart's investigation as far as I can see. I think it was racing incident as far as I'm concerned. I don't think, George has got a bit of reputation in the past of maybe taking people out from time to time. But I don't think this was one of those. What do you think, Brian?
No, racing incident. I'm sorry. Max made his career much more aggressive moves than. And so to me, that was not overly aggressive. He left space. That was Max's thing. You got to leave a space. He did. You had a space. You guys just collided a little before that space. And then on turn 3, when you hit the wall, you didn't have to hit the wall. You could have been over a little bit more. And again, I recognize the precision at the C speeds is ridiculous. But I think George left him space both times. And yes, they hit each other, but give me a break.
Yeah, and then we just saw a random picture of a wheel that looked like, it's like if you ever watch a horse racing event and they throw the jockey and the horse guy bolts by itself and you think it's going to win the race. We got this tire just spinning down the middle of the, and everyone's trying to go, well, where's that come from?
And then it took forever for them to call a virtual safety car. Like they just kept racing, and the TV keeps showing the tire, and there's no flags or VSC coming up. And then maybe I'm misreading this, but I'm pretty sure I saw the nose of a Ferrari coming around the corner with the tire still rolling before VSC came up. It felt like Charles rocked up on the scene, found a tire, and then Yuki, by the way, can we talk about AlphaTauri? He comes back in with 3 tires, okay? And his car is alternatively dragging the ground and tipping forward. It's like rocking back and forth. They get him in the pits, and someone comes over to look at the car in a yellow hat, and he does a 1 second check over, thumbs up, they put a tire on, and he comes out in the new modern Hummer crab walk where the thing's going, it's pointing this way and it's going a completely different direction. How did they put that car back out on track without at least looking at it for more than half a second?
I don't know, because like you say, it looked really weird when they saw it coming down the straight. I'm like, that car's not actually straight. It's kind of trying to do a Tokyo drift in a straight line.
It is.
So yeah, and I think you kind of pointed out that they have some right bodge jobs of repairs at AlphaTauri with their tape from a few years ago.
Yeah, the wing that they fell off and wouldn't close and open, they taped it all together so it was in unison. Yeah. I mean, that was insane. And then Max, of course, cried quite a long time about the George situation, but he did have a lot of damage to his car. Kudos to him for finishing that race, the sprint race where he did. I mean, when they showed the car at the end, I'm like, holy cow.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, definitely there was damage there, but yeah, it just kind of felt like we had I hate when and this isn't beating up on Max because all drivers do it. In fact, Lewis is famous for it. This whole, I'm just going to go on and on and on and on the radio about it because I want to make my point to race control. It's like, oh, we get it. You think you were hit. It's fine. Let's just move on. And then we just got a theme that is just going to come back, and I'm going to have a rant about it later, I think, is that DRS is just awful. I hate it. It should be fired into the sun and never to return to this earth because I can't stand it. I'm worried we're just getting into an era where no one has to earn an overtake anymore now. It's just like you bide your time till you get to the DRS zone and then you scoot by with no problem whatsoever. You could just be probably scrolling Twitter at the same time as you go past because it's just too... If we remember where DRS came from, F1 was in the doldrums and it wasn't a very exciting spectacle. And with all the turbulent air behind, no one could really get close to get the slipstream because you kind of had to fight your way through the turbulent air to get to the slipstream. So you couldn't get that close. So they introduced it to help tow you through it. Great. It was a band-aid to try to increase it. These cars can follow now. And it just feels like, I think, I'm having my rant now, so we don't have the rant later. Like, you've set me off, Brian, already. I think, and I could be wrong on this, we had one overtake today that was not in the DRS zone. One in the entire field. Forget start line
Fernando had
when people come
one,
off
and Lando had
no,
one.
Lando on Hulk when Hulk's tyres were going and he went wide in the little lefty-righty in the midsection. Norris did brilliantly to keep the pressure on him and then kind of zipped past. Every other overtake I saw was on the main straight on the DRS.
Well, there weren't a lot of overtakes. It felt like the Red Bull were some of the few cars that could actually even get it done. They shortened the DRS on the main straight, and a lot of people would get real close and then not be able to make it happen.
Yeah, I just don't like it. I just think it's pointless. It's like, what's the point in getting? You can't defend anymore. The art of defense is getting completely nerfed by DRS because you don't need to. You can defend for 9/10 of a lap, and then you get onto the straight where the DRS is, and it's like, and especially because you can't weave, so you can do what, one move to try to block someone off. It's like, doesn't matter. I got DRS. I'll be past you in a minute anyway. Make you move, sunshine. See if I care.
Red Bulls seem to, and we've heard this a lot, this really have a powerful drag reduction system impact. And it feels like they go whizzing by at 20 miles an hour, 15 miles an hour faster. Whereas the other cars, it's neck and neck. And so I just would ask you, if you took the Red Bull overtakes out,
it's not neck and neck, though, Brian. We don't really get much. So what we get is the situation where the car in front, and we saw it a few times today, the car in front is legitimately faster, and the DRS, like you say, is not quite enough to help get them to earn the overtake. So what that does then is artificially keep the slower car behind closer to it and creates the train. Yeah. So you get the opposite problem. So when the DRS is strong, you just whiz past with no, I won't say no skill needed because that's a ridiculous thing to say, but with no kind of extra effort of crafting an overtake. You just press the Mario Kart button and you go, right? Then you get the other ones where now this guy can't get past, and he's only artificially holding on, and then it creates the big train behind. So DRS now for me is going one of two ways. You're either getting ridiculously easy overtakes where you just breeze past, or you get a train form, and we're not seeing as much wheel-to-wheel guile to try to force the other car into a mistake, because you don't need to, because you bide your time and then just DRS your way past them.
So
That's my little rant.
I'm not in the same place as you are. I'm not in the same place as you are. I do appreciate DRS. I hadn't thought of it the way the defense going the way of the dodo, because there's nothing you can do on the DRS straights. And then, the cars are large, and especially at Baku, passing in other spots is a challenge, apparently.
True, yeah. The size of the cars is ridiculous as well at the moment. They're just so big.
I get your point. I don't agree, but I get your point. I just think it's got to be tuned at every track, and I think if you hold Red Bull out as the outliers or the most powerful DRS, it's still useful in my mind. But I do get your point on the trains. Going back to the sprint real quick here, now that we're off your soapbox.
You sent me off on right on a one-way ticket to Ranksville.
Yeah, you did. Rob's Rant, sponsored by your name here. And so then what confused me, we learned a lot about tire deg in the sprint, and it was high. And so what that meant was Lando came into pit in the sprint, 17 laps, and he's in the pits. Only the top 8 get points. The moment they called him in for a pit, he's done. You're going to finish last or near the bottom because no one else is planning on pitting because it's 17 laps only. I don't think if I were the team, I'd have been shocked if anyone anticipated anyone pitting during a sprint. And so I looked at this, I'm like, why would that happen? And again, he was on the softs, and obviously not a new set, or he would have been in the SQ3. I didn't like that. We did see a little other pitting. Valtteri was out there with literally soft tires melting, his words. But they didn't. Yeah. I don't think they brought him in because they knew what's the point. Like, we bring you in.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a sprint. Like, a pit stop is death in the sprint. So I'm almost surprised they sent Lando back out. If they brought him in, they might have just, fake retired the car and got him a sandwich.
Well, I guess maybe it was some data collection for the Sunday.
Yeah,
who knows?
True, that's a good point. But then, speaking of sandwiches.
Yes, go on. You take it.
No, you do it.
Okay, I had to go back to Twitter and share our YouTube song again for the 100th time because people don't understand how sandwiches work. Karen Chanduk, he's remarking about how Charles is between the two Red Bulls, and he says, Charles is in a Red Bull sandwich at the moment. No, he's not.
It's a Charles sandwich.
Oh,
now, you could say he's sandwiched by Red Bulls. Would have been okay, Karun. We're just being, that would have been all right, correct. Because that's a term that is used to have on the sides, but you're not the sandwich. It's not a Red Bull. No. And then at the end, the best part was clearly when Max and George got in their little confrontation. I did not I'll just be honest, I'm fine with Max spouting off. They're athletes. This is the heat of the moment. I have no problem with that whatsoever. He did get the wrong end of that, entanglement. So if Max wants to have a problem, good for him. He's a great driver. He's an all-time driver. However, I didn't like him saying, well, next time I'll do that to you, or, I'll turn it around. And then he called him a name at the end, which I have no problem with him calling a name, but he can't do it on camera. As Crofty always says, some fruity language. And so, to me, I was fine with all of it. Just not I'm going to do this to you next. Come on, man. You can't say that crap out loud.
Yeah, what's the point of that? So, good old Checo, king of street circuits, wins the sprint. So we move on to Sunday to go straight into the race. And before they started, we don't normally cover any of the... we do cover the grid work when it's...
when Martin Brundle was making a hash of it.
Yeah, but this time... I wasn't really paying attention. If I'm honest, I was getting some breakfast sorted, waiting for the race to start, and just saw George and Lando got collared at the same time for an interview. And there was just a great bit of comedy genius going back and forth between the two of them. It was brilliant. And I'm not even sure we can get back to that video and ever show it again. But they were just having a little bit of banter about that whole Max incident. Lando's blatantly trying to wind up George, going, "Have you seen Max today, by the way?" And then they said, "Did you hear? He says he's going to get you." He's like, "I can't wait to see that."
And then George kind of gets a little bit, riled up by this. And Lando goes, "Calm down. It's fine. I'm on your side." I'm like, whoa, really? Because, Max and Lando are buddies.
And then George is like, where are you starting? As if, he was, going to, be belittle him because he was so far back down the grid. And he was like, in fact, where did Lando start?
Ahead of George, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he gave his position. And George was like, oh, really? He's like, yeah. I could have watched that for a bit longer.
And
Anyway,
then the race starts.
Lights
There's
out.
not a lot on. We'll go quickly here, not to rehash certain things that were a nothing burger. But I gotta say, it's rare when I have like good vision for things that are happening that the TV commentators don't. Usually I watch because the TV commentators point something out and I learn. I'm watching this race, and as they're cutting from angle to angle, I saw 3 cars in about turn 3, 3 abreast, and a pinball. The car in the middle pinballed between the two, and I write it in the notes, and like I'm like, Rob, did you see that? And then it turned out it was Albon, Piastri, and Valtteri. And Albon and Piastri hit on the left side, shoots Piastri into Valtteri, who pushes him into the wall. Then Valtteri gets rammed by a Haas, I'm pretty sure. It was basically the worst of it for Valtteri by far, and it effectively hosed him up for quite some time.
Completely.
It dropped him back, and he had damage, I'm sure. It was just a mess.
I'm with you. I saw it, and I saw Valtteri get hit, and then the commentary team come back on later going, oh, there's a yellow flag in zone 1 and we don't know why. I'm like, well, because it's probably debris from that incident that you don't seem to have realised just happened. So yeah, they did kind of. And this is where I was going to do my DRS rant, is that, Charles does a good job of getting away. But you could see, and this is why I didn't like, Checo was going to have to fight to get past Leclerc, and you could see on the straights, the overheads, it was amazing. Even without DRS, Checo is closing that gap down. And that's what I would love to go back to, where the driver behind is faster and has to earn his overtake. Because as I wrote in the notes, this is great, but as soon as they enable DRS, Checo's gone.
Well, that was one
He's
of
just
my
gone.
Crap. I basically said it would be the first time they go down the main straight with DRS, Checo will have him. And he did.
Yeah, absolutely. It's... So kind of you knew the writing was on the wall there, and you knew that Max was going to get him any second as well. So you just knew now it was going to be, unless anything happens, reliability, crash, what have you, it's going to be the 2 Red Bulls disappearing into the distance, and now we're fighting for the podium. Only we didn't really get much of a fight.
Well, there were a few highlights along the way.
Yeah.
I liked when Lance basically says, tell Fernando I'm not going to fight him. I'm on the same strategy. And then they get on and tell Fernando that. And he's like, oh, my brother Lance. And so then they just kind of, and he's like, tell him I'm watching Lewis's tires. I can see Lewis's tires graining. I'm like, Fernando has become the Matrix. He basically sees it in dripping green ones and zeros across his face. He's insane. And
and maybe, and this is again where I don't have the same love affair with tires as you do, is that there needs to be something more jeopardy or more choice or more something that makes people want to take a gamble on a different tire strategy. Because this was just medium hard across the board or hard medium. That was it. It was a one-stop race. And because when they go into the hards and they want to make the hards last, or when they start on the hards and they want to make them last, everybody goes into a little bit of tyre preservation mode. So no one's pushing it as hard as they could, because that was blatantly obvious towards the end when Aston woke up and suddenly got some pace and maybe left their charge a little bit too late. But it then goes, I think a big deal of the nothing burger is the tyre management has to rule the roost here, because you don't want to tear through, because taking a 2-stopper is just so much slower. I don't think it was a viable strategy. So you just kind of got it all kind of just settled into this nothing but.
Yeah, I mean, Valtteri pitted 3 times or something like that, and you saw what it did to him because of the accident and then things after that. I like tires because it creates strategy. There wasn't a lot of strategy in this race. That's why I agree with you. I enjoy tires, but not for the compound, but for the actual strategy it drives. And it didn't feel like there was a lot on this one. The one thing I would say from a strategy perspective I did like, I thought it was cool that they decided to make some edits to the cars, and they were okay starting in the pits for Esteban and for Nico. And they said, we're going to go long on the hard tires. We know this. That's our strategy. We'll wait for a safety car towards the second half of the race. Didn't work for them. And Esteban's situation almost took out some photographers. But I thought it was a good call. For cars who wouldn't have been probably in the points anyway, it was worth taking a shot. And had there been a safety car in the second half of the race, they might have been in the points. So it was worth it.
Yeah, and just to quickly ask you here, actually, it's as good a place as any. So I was on the fence as to whether, did the lack of practice time give us one of the biggest spread out races we've seen this season? So we were commenting recently that the gap between the back and the front has been quite close and things have closed up. Yes, if you take the Red Bull out for a couple of races because they disappeared into the distance, we've had some decent closure. But here we had with Charles like 20 seconds behind the Red Bull. Then we had like George able to pit on the last lap to go for the fastest lap because he had a pit stop behind him. We haven't seen that all season. Now, is that just Baku and the tyre management, that some cars managing their tyres are naturally slower than other cars that are managing their tyres? Or was it because everyone was going into it a little bit going, I don't know, we'll press that button, we'll try that setting, God knows. Do you think it was lack of
I don't know. That's a
time,
great
or?
question. I don't think it's lack of data because they had the whole sprint race and the sprint quali, and they did have a practice, and they had the first quali. I think it was a combination of higher than expected tire deg combined with the compounds they used. So, like, they were on the softest set of compounds. So the soft tires were not used in the race except for George on the last lap. So they basically only had 2 viable tires, and the mediums are burning off fast. And then I think it's a combination as well as the track. Baku has so many 90-degree corners, which create trains. As you said, it's hard to overtake in a lot of those situations. And so it becomes like a DRS-enabled pass more often than not. And because of that, you look at these cars where we have tiers. And I'll just point this out real fast. We clearly have Red Bull as number 1. And then we have a mix, depending on track and the downforce of the cars, of Aston Martin, Ferrari, and Mercedes. And those are the cars that finished in the top 8 in both the sprint race and the real race. So to me, I think you have these natural tiers of cars with different attributes at a track where it's a lot of slow down corners and then high speed, and you have just natural tiers occurring. And so it kind of just, unfortunately, it was a bad track for these types of cars at this point. I hate to say it, last year was a bad race too.
But they know that the tyre deg is awful here, so why do they go in with that range? They can pick any range they like to say which is going to be the soft, medium, and hard, right? And this is my frustration that they could have picked a better one, but...
Yeah. Anyway, the only real action, there was a little action, was when we had Nick De Vries for like the 3rd time this weekend hit a wall. Yeah. And this time he really did a number on the left front. Came off and was, a Sonoda situation pointing in the wrong direction. And we ended up with, very interestingly, and Rob, you and I talk about this a lot, we ended up with double waved yellows, which then, after a little while, transitioned to a safety car. That time of the transition, which happens a lot, like, let's be honest, this happens all the time, whether it's to a VSC or a safety car, or even at times from safety car to red flag, it happens all the time. But it caught Max on the wrong foot. He did nothing wrong. I don't think Red Bull, love your opinion, I don't think they did anything wrong. He was first. They had to make a call. He gets to choose first. He took the pit stop under the double waved yellows. Then they go to safety car. Everyone slows down, and Checo gets a cheaper pit stop the next lap around and comes out first and drives off into the sunset. I thought it was fine. I don't think anyone did anything wrong. It was, as Max pointed out, it was Jeddah from last year, which cost Checo the win last year because of the same situation.
Yeah, I mean, I thought they hadn't done anything wrong, but when they had, who's the lady on the commentary team that's from the pit wall?
Bernie?
She's joined them recently, and she used to be on. Yeah. I couldn't remember her name for a second. So she was saying it was a bad call because they would know that there was a potential safety car opportunity coming up. Everyone gets to see the same TV footage. They can see the marooned car. There's no way he hasn't got the engine running, or at least he's not going to be able to get back going. That's pretty much safety car territory. And they would have known that, so she just thought they pulled the trigger a bit quickly to bring Max in. So I'll defer to her because she knows a lot more than I do. So I'm with you. I didn't really see just luck of the draw. They both got cheap pit stops, and Checo got a cheaper one.
Exactly, felt that way.
So yeah.
A few laps later, we had Fernando calling in brake bias settings to the team, saying, "Hey, share this with Lance. I find out it's working." And then, like 1 lap later, Lance goes flying off the track. Turn 16. Yeah. Did you see that? I'm like, oh no. Is he sending him like a bad note on purpose?
Yeah, do this. It'll really work, honest. But or maybe that's it. Maybe he's like, with a new facade, he's lulled people into a false sense of security so he can hatch these little evil plots every now and again. But yeah, that was quite funny. I give a shout out to a couple of moments in there. I thought, and we've kind of gone all over the map here because, to be honest, there's no point doing our normal race review because not a lot happened. But I thought Sargent towards the end was holding off Gasly well, even though Gasly was in the DRS zone of Sargent, and that Alpine is quick. So I thought Sargent held him off for a long time. He got him in the end. He held him off. And the same person holding off and had kept him off was Carlos Sainz. I mean, Hamilton was in his rearview mirror for about what felt like 10 laps on the trot. Like,
it was unbelievable.
He get within 0.3 seconds, and the pressure for Carlo is I have to nail the middle sector every single time, because if I do that, I can get out. So I think the magic number was about 0.68 seconds. If I can get 0.68 ahead of Lewis, then Lewis doesn't have enough room down the DRS down the straight to get me. So hats off to Sainz, because if he messed up one of those middle sectors when he was defending, then, and if Lewis had gone to the final straight with anything, I think under 0.68 seconds, if he was 0.5 or what have you, he'd have got him on DRS. But Sainz played a blinder in that midsection time after time after time until eventually Hamilton dropped out of DRS zone.
Well, I joked this weekend it felt like we barely saw Carlos because all we saw at the end of this race was Lewis on the attack. As you said, it was a constant stream of onboards of the back of Carlos's car being in touching distance, literally. Like, I'm like, Lewis could have taken his glove off and thrown it and hit the back of the Ferrari many times, but he just couldn't get past him. And by like the fifth lap of this, I think I wrote a note that said, holy cow, what? Now that was good defending and good racing by Carlos, because he didn't put a foot wrong. He screws up a little bit on the exit of a corner. Lewis is going to have him on one of those straights. And it's not as though Lewis has lost his edge. He's a great racer. So to me, that was probably the highlight of a fifth place finish for Carlos, was basically holding off a 7-time world champion for however many, 8-10 laps of heated attacking.
And then we had the madness that you mentioned earlier, which is Ocon has decided to play the gamble that I'm just going to stay right out until the end and hope that it throws up a safety car. And if it does, I'm going to be in a really, really good position here. And it didn't. So then he has to make his mandatory pit stop. Everybody knows this. The commentary team have been mentioning it over and over again. He's going to have to come in and pit. He's going to have to come and pit. You know, people that didn't even know F1, they were stopping people in the street and saying, do you know what's about to happen? They were like, yep, Ocon's going to have to pit. And everyone knew it. And then you've got people just leisurely walking across the pit lane and you're like, oh my God, someone's actually going to get seriously injured here. And kudos to Ocon for, taking evasive action as he came into the pit lane, and then those idiots that all had to jump out of the way. I mean, that's a bad look for F1 today.
Horrible. Not only did they already so Hulkenberg came in a couple laps earlier. He didn't wait quite to the end. And you saw when he came in, and George too, when he came in first tires, they'd already put the metal fencing around where the podium, underneath the podium where the cars go.
Yep.
But then for Esteban, they had the photographers, and they actually had those little like belt barriers. They were building it across the main pit lane when he turned the corner, and they quickly got out of the way as best they could. He slowed up a lot and moved to the right, almost hit the wall. That was horrible. I mean, this actually happened last year. For anyone who's newer to F1, in Australia last year, Albon was on a very similar strategy. And he went to the very last lap till he had to change his tires to use the mandatory, second different compound. And he actually recounts that there were people, and it wasn't as many photographers, but like VIPs just milling in the pit lane last year at Australia. And so it blows my mind that they can't or haven't tightened up. It's because they could have done this last year at Australia. Should have been done then. No one enters the pit lane until the last car passes through the start-finish line. I don't understand why that's so hard to do.
No, I totally agree with you. So, but Checo took the win. Max second. Chuck got himself on the podium, and George did go and get the fastest lap point by throwing a set of softs on right on the last lap. So good.
Do you want
George
any of those
there.
sounds, or are you just going to do them all yourself? You want a George?
We go for it.
George!
There you go. Real fast. We've sort of sheeted Checo here on this one. He won both events.
Yeah, I was just about to go on about that and just.
And I got to give him in the main race. I'm a Checo fan. In the main race, Max had all the time in the world after that safety car to catch him, and he was within DRS after he passed Charles. He didn't. He didn't catch him. He didn't build, and if anything, Checo built it up to about 3.5 seconds. The margin.
Checo's off to the FIA to petition for an all-street circuit world championship. That's where he's going. The guy's a king on them. I don't understand it. I can't get my brain into gear as to why he just seems to excel at street circuits, but then legitimately seems to suffer, struggle even, on your more traditional circuit.
Struggle's a little bold of a word. He's just not as good as Max.
But why? He's in the same car, and when it's on a certain type of circuit, he can nail it and look invincible. And next time out, Miami's kind of a street circuit, so maybe he'll have another run there. But you watch, the next time we go to a more traditional one, he'll be in danger of being fending off people behind rather than chasing Max down. I don't get it.
I don't
Surely
either.
it's the same. You have to turn the car left and right and accelerate and brake.
But-
it's all the same actions, but you put him on a street circuit and he is a genius.
But hold on a second. Let's go back to this. Max had like 2/3 of the race to catch him.
Yeah.
Could not.
Yep.
Max Verstappen, who I think we'd all agree is the most dominant driver in F1 for the last couple years. He is a 2-time world champion. He's a generational talent. He's in the same car as Checo. Checo almost didn't have a drive. They take him off the street 2 years ago, and he's won 5 street races in a row.
Yeah.
And he is clearly still the number 2 in that team. Weirdly, I get it. I get why, but it's the most fixed 1 versus 2 team, and yet here he is dominating. It blows my mind.
On both of them. And this is why I just wish. I hope this year he can unlock whatever it is in his head to do it on the non-street circuits, because while we know that Red Bull looked dominant this year, it would be amazing if we went to like the last couple of races and it was Checo versus Max. I think that would be insane.
I think he's actually not gone to the FIA. He's gone to the Mexican GP authorities and said, we got to ditch the entire track that we're using today. It's not tight enough. It's not enough of a street circuit.
Just race around the baseball ground.
Yeah, just the stadium.
It
and
will look like the old Vegas. It will look like the old Vegas one. They'll just cram it all into the.
It's too much of a track today. We need to make this tighter street circuit situation so I can win at home.
Oh man! So yes, congrats Vamos. Congrats Vamos. Vamos Checo.
Vamos
Congrats
Checo.
Checo. Whichever way you want to say it. He was awesome today. He was awesome in the sprint. It was totally his weekend. So I'm all in for Team Checo to take it to Max. So it was a bit of a nothing burger of a race, but it was cars back on track, and we had the sprint race, so we got a little bit of extra excitement. And I love the fact that Checo won both of them. So while that wasn't exciting, what is exciting is that Brian has spent those 4 weeks locked in a dark room, analysing stats. And I'm going to hand it over to you, Brian, for a bumper edition. So over to you, my friend.
Sapstats, Azerbaijan GP Baku edition with the Slap House. All right. So the sprint. Checo was the first driver to cross the line in P1 twice in Baku, as he had already won in 2022 there in the full GP. We'd not had a repeat winner, which was a very overused stat throughout the entirety of the weekend. And then after winning the full GP, Checo said 2.5 wins is the way he phrased it, and I like that. So I would agree. In the sprint, George took P4 for Mercedes, which I thought was a good drive for him because he'd been kind of nowhere before that. It was his best Grand Prix result this season. He was also P4 at Jeddah. And Fernando took P6 for his and Aston Martin's first ever sprint points, because obviously changed the way the points have been done through the sprints. So first time for Aston to get sprint. In the race, and a couple of these I have borrowed from virtual statman Sean Kelly, thank you. Checo's the first driver, as I said, to win Azerbaijan more than once, officially now, because it's sprint and 2 races. It's his 5th Baku podium. 5th! That's a lot, more than any other driver there. And now, as I'd already mentioned this one, his last 5 wins have all come on street or street-like circuits. Baku, Monaco, Singapore, and Jeddah. It's the 25th 1-2 finish for Red Bull in team history. And it's now the last time they've done 1-2 in consecutive times at a track was Interlagos in 2010 and 2011. So
I saw you'd written that one, and I couldn't believe it had been that long, actually.
At the same track, back-to-back track ones and
True.
twos. It was Verstappen's, here's a great one, 81st podium finish. It passes Senna in terms of podiums. And as I mentioned, tomorrow's the anniversary of Senna's passing. 3rd place for Chuck. It was their first podium of 2023 for Ferrari, as we know. Rob, were you excited by that?
Not really.
Did you notice he stood on the number 2 side of the podium and they had the graphic wrong?
No, I didn't at that point. I was getting ready to go and get myself ready for my football games.
They hosed that up after letting people in the pit lane. So Leclerc had 22 points this weekend after having a total of 6 through the first 3 races. So it was great. Charles must feel fantastic. His music is on top of the charts. He has 22 points. He doesn't even know I'm about to talk about his pole to win ratio, which is terrible, but I'll get there in a sec. It was Alonso's first ever top 5 finish in Baku. However, the Aston Martin team have always had a car in the top 6 in Baku. Wasn't it Seb last year with that crazy second, or was that 2 years ago here?
Yes.
Exactly. Lewis's P6, here's a night and day stat. His P6 was his worst result of the season so far. However, Mercedes finished over 45 seconds behind the race winner. If you pull up the actual timing, Lewis was 46.145 seconds behind Checo. Oh my God, that's a mile away. So, good thing that he's been so consistent, bad thing that they're so far from the Red Bulls. Lando was 9th, second consecutive race in the points from McLaren. He also finished 9th in Baku last year. So maybe Mr. 7th from a season ago will always be 9th at Baku. We should remember that. And then this one was a big deal about Australia. If you remember, Yuki had 3 11th place finishes in a row. Do you remember this? And we were like, oh, is he going to finish 11th again? But he finished 10th because Carlos had the penalty. He finished 10th today, so maybe there's a new streak loading of 10ths for Yuki. However, Charles, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about Charles. A little research I'm doing. His music is great. His pole positions is great. It's fun watching him race. I have a soft spot in my heart and maybe a hard spot in my pants for Charles, but that's okay. So as we look at it, today was the 8th consecutive time Leclerc's failed to convert a pole position into a win. The longest such streak is 10 from Nelson Piquet in 1984 to 1987. So I said, that's interesting. Let's do a little more research here. Charles has 19 pole positions. 19, which is a lot. Of active drivers, Lewis has 103 poles, Max 22, Fernando 22, Valtteri 20, Charles at 19. So that's a lot of pole positions. He's high up on the grid. However, if you flip the stat a little bit as number of GPs, it changes a little. Lewis, 33% of the time he's in a GP, he has the pole position. Charles is down a bit at 18%. So again, that's still pretty good, right? I mean, that's a good amount. Max is only at 13%. So Charles is pretty good at getting poles in the races he's in. However, how many times do they win from pole? ESPN had a stat that they put out just a little bit ago that said 5. They're actually wrong because Charles has 5 wins total. Only 4 were from pole. Austria was from second place. So I'm for higher, ESPN, if you want some of your stats right. So as I mentioned this, how many times have you won from pole? Lewis has won 61 times from pole. Max, 17 times from pole. I just mentioned he only has 22. Max, you get him on the front, you ain't going to see him again.
Yeah.
Fernando has 14 wins from pole. Valtteri 6. Charles 4. So when you look at that as a wins per pole ratio, if you would, Max is the leader with the people who only have 1, right? 1 pole and 1 win. Let's take them out because that's kind of the outlier of the statistic. Max has won 77% of the time when he's on pole. By far and away, the leader in F1 history with people more than 1 pole. Fernando, 63% of the time. Lewis, 59% of the time. Checo, 1 pole again, but 50. So then I'm going to scroll down a little while. Just play some music in the background. Charles has won 21% of the time when he's been on pole. That
Mr. Saturday
is terrible. He is the new Mr. Saturday.
Yep.
You've heard me say this before. Like, I had the sneaking suspicion he can put together one amazing lap in quali, and whether the Ferrari doesn't have race pace or he makes a mistake, I already played the no sound. Imola last year, he outdid himself on a corner. I mean, I don't know what it is, Rob. I love the guy. I want to love the guy even more. But when you only convert 21% of poles to wins, and Max converts 77% of poles to wins, and they have a relatively similar number of poles, that's a humongous difference.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, it's just the Ferrari just doesn't seem to have it. Just doesn't seem to have. They see the Red Bull is such a good car that it seems to be both balanced for quali and race, whereas it feels like they go all in on quali on the Ferraris to get up as high as they can, knowing that they're going to probably fall back on the Sunday. So they max out the quali strategy, and pits. I don't mean pits. Stats don't lie. So there we are. It's because I was getting ahead of myself and thinking, we thought it was a nothing burger. We should probably hear from the one, the only, the man, the legend, Pitlane Paul.
Hey guys, So, after a bit of a lengthy delay, let's call it, we're back with Baku. Everyone was excited, and F1 decided they would launch this weird, but actually quite enjoyable and amazing sprint weekend, if we can call it that. So, as the guys have probably mentioned, I won't go over it again. It was a Friday that was worth watching because there was something actually happening. So, you qualifying for Sunday. And then Saturday was his own day, and then Sunday was a follow-on from Friday. So, more exciting, yes. Confusing, yes. So on and so forth. Sprint race was quite good, I guess. There was a bit going on. Probably more exciting than the actual race. I'm going to be quite dull on this one, to be honest with you. Let's cover the sprint race. Okay, great. Brilliant. Yeah. It was good. I actually quite liked it. I think it gave the weekend something a little bit exciting. I think it was positive and something I'll look forward to again. It just sort of saves the weekends from being the same. But then at the same time, I do quite like the current structure, the current setup of what we got. So there's a bit of a win-lose, a bit of a win-win. I don't know. I think I like it. I think I want it to stay. I think it's good. I think it adds something to the sport. It gives it a difference. It gives certain races a little bit more to look at. But really, apart from that, qualifying was as you'd expect, really. Obviously, a few little incidents with drivers crashing. None of them too surprising. I would say no one was really, I would say, disastrously out of position. It was just, I got no real interest in going any further into that apart from the race. I'm going to tell you an interesting fact about Baku, and that is in 1823 the world's first paraffin factory was built. With that in mind, I would honestly say just bear that in mind as being arguably more exciting than the actual race itself. It was depressing as hell. The only real incident sadly involved us with Valtteri. We got involved in a bit of a strange moment with Albon trying to be a bit keen at the inside at turn 2, which resulted, I believe it was Piastri being bumped into us, which put us into the wall, and then Magnussen finished the job by shafting us straight at the rear, for want of a better phrase. So a little bit frustrating from our side, but actually, as that was probably the most exciting thing that happened in the whole race, apart from the last couple of laps, which I'll come to shortly. It was depressing, wasn't it? Not a lot really happened. There's a bit of a DRS train. It's a great race. I just think something needed to sort of kick in for this to be a little bit better. But okay, it's what it is. We just move on. The incident with Ocon. I mean, who's to blame for that? I don't know. But it's crazy. They know. I mean, you've got to look at the timesheets. For me, this is my complaint. You have to look at the timesheets. Ocon hasn't stopped. He needs to stop. So you're sort of like surely going to be thinking, well, at some point he has to come into the pit lane. So to send the people out they did, and they have to have the fences up. I grant that. They have to get things sorted. I grant that. Does it take that long to put up 20 fences? So 20 people carrying the fence, putting it in place, and another 3 people carrying a 1, 2, 3. I don't know. It needs looking at, and after the calamity of Australia with people coming on the track, I just think it's something which I don't know. But for me, that was a crazy moment and very lucky. I think we will say very lucky. But again, apart from the near death of a few marshals, which we didn't want, that was pretty much the second most exciting thing that happened of the weekend. So, all things considered, we move on to Miami next week. It'll be great to see stateside again. I'm in Nashville for a few days beforehand, and then we'll enjoy the riches of Miami. The weekend can be summarised quite easily. Fantastic idea of the sprint races, but apart from that, it didn't really get going. Didn't really do anything for me. The race was terrible. It's a great city, Baku. It's one of the one races that many people just assume isn't a good city, and it's fantastic, and it's one to add to your calendars if you do want to do that travelling. But for now, get me on a plane to Miami. I want some Coors Light, because as much as I like beer, when I have 15 pints, I normally buckle, so Coors Light can actually get me there quite comfortably without being sick twice. Take care. Bye bye.
Paul's reviews are the absolute best. Paul, thank you for that. 15
Paul's
Coors
review
Light's a lot. I'm a
sponsored
Coors
by
Light drinker.
Coors Light, yeah.
Coors Light. So then, as we piloted in Australia, we have some In the Marbles listener race review submissions, and I'm going to play a couple of them here. Actually, one of them came in quickly as a text on Twitter from J. Timothy's Tavern. 4 words only needed. Not well done, Baku. So we hear you there. And we also had listener Jim with his submission this week.
Hi, my name is Jim from Connecticut. Go Red Bull, boring race, Clippy, Ferrari finally showed up.
Awesome, Jim. Thank you very much. We had a couple others that came in late, but I would just say if you want to participate, feel free to send them in to us. Your name, where you're located, a 10-word race review, and send them to dirtysideofthetrack@gmail.com. So those were fantastic. Rob, that was fun, huh?
Yeah, they're good. The Clippy reference from Jim, because he texted me during the race, was he wanted to know if the race was sponsored by the old Microsoft Word paperclip logo because of how many people were kissing or clipping the wall over and over again. So that's where Clippy comes from. So yeah, thanks for sending that in, Jim. Where are we now? That's kind of the weekend fantasy team. Is that?
Yeah,
do we
just
do
a
it this
quick
week, or
note.
should we do it next week on Miami if it hasn't updated?
Yeah, it hasn't, because we've only given it 47 hours and they haven't figured out how to do the math quickly enough. But just looking at it, a quick note, my main team, I'm going to be down a little, is my anticipation, because I had Albon in, figuring that was a good move. My team is updated, so I think everyone can see their teams right now. He's still a -2. I don't understand that, but okay. However, I put him in place of Joe or in place of De Vries, which were larger negatives. So that'll help me, because everyone around me had that as the template. However, just about everybody in my little spot in the league here had double points on Checo. And so I put double points on Max. It didn't hurt me per se, but it helped them. So I anticipate falling back a little bit this week. And the one other thing I'd say is when I created my team, I tried to see if I could see my team once. So I tried to create a second team, which I could never delete because thanks F1 game. So I call it the cheapest. And every week I put in the cheapest team you can have, like the lowest amount of money you can possibly have on your team, and just see how many points I can get on the cheapest. Well, the cheapest this week, which was Logan, Nico, Yuki, Joe, and Nick with Haas and Williams, they came in at -64. So that is a pretty. I might actually beat 0 for the season at this point.
What did your main team score this week then?
345 because of the sprint really helped out. So it's a lot of points with no chips. What did you have? You beat me?
I beat you for once. Well, I played that because I don't quite understand all of the new chips, but
we did a whole episode on this.
I know, but I wasn't listening. No, I played that autopilot one because I gave Max, because I was worried about DNFs more than anything. Not that actually transpired. I double up Max, but I put the autopilot on so that it will automatically give you the doubling of your best driver, which was obviously Checo. So I didn't foresee Checo like those others that you mentioned who doubled Checo, but I inadvertently doubled him by autopilot. So there we are.
What'd you get?
352.
Oh,
because I did swap De Vries in for. I was looking at because I'm the same as you. We've all got the double Aston, double Red Bull all the way through. So it's really competing against one driver and how you play your chip. So yeah, I swapped out Zhou. So I was quite happy when Zhou retired because it kind of negated that, like De Vries and Zhou. Well, if I'd have swapped him out and Zhou had gone on to score points, I'd have been looking at De Vries and saying, "You're not in my good book, sir." But I don't need to have that word with him now because Zhou didn't cover himself in glory either.
But we'll do more of a recap at Miami. Make sure we get a shout out to everyone in the top 5 or so from this race. And speaking of Miami, it's next week, baby.
It is. But before we go to Miami, exactly. Yeah, I was getting ready for the whole, I did a rant today on DRS because I hate DRS, but I only don't hate DRS when it is the 100 seconds of DRS. Right. But you kind of ruined that by trying to jump ahead to Miami, so I didn't get the chance to do that segue. Yeah. So, I mean, I could edit it out, but I really can't be bothered. So, yes, we caught up with Justin in the week. It was a great chat. So, let us listen in to Justin taking on the 100 seconds of DRS.
Box.
All right. We are really excited to have Justin join us today to do the 100 seconds of DRS. But first, Justin, man, welcome to the Dirty Side.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. So I hear an American accent, which is great. So you're here in the States, yes?
Yes, sir. I live in Pennsylvania.
Love it. And how did you get into F1?
It's kind of a funny story. Just when COVID hit, I received a text message from one of my best friends that said, "Hey, the new season of Drive to Survive is out," and I had no idea what he was talking about. So I decided to ask him what it was, and he said it was Formula One. So I checked it out and started watching Drive to Survive for like at the newest season, which was like season 3 at the time, and uh, ever since then, I've just been super obsessed with F1 and super devoted to it and want to know everything about it.
That's really cool. And I hope, because it's difficult for Brian and I. We always say that we don't gatekeep. We don't get gatekeep F1 fans. We don't care whether you've been in it for 50 years or 50 seconds. An F1 fan is an F1 fan is an F1 fan. It's all good. But when you go onto the Twitterverse, which I know is kind of how you found us, you do seem to see that kind of bit of a backlash against the Drive to Survive fans. And I just, from your perspective, have you had any of that, or are you feeling nice and welcomed into the F1 community?
I don't think I feel any of that. I would say definitely welcomed. I've also recently found out about some other friends of mine that have been in Formula One or watched Formula One for a while, and I mean, not they haven't said anything like, "Oh, you're a Drive to Survive guy," like you don't know anything about it. But no, they've openly accepted me into their little F1 group, and we get together every so often and watch races together.
And I'm
Awesome.
assuming once we publish this conversation this Sunday that you'll send it to them and they'll become listeners too.
Absolutely.
That's what I like to hear. That's what I like
Nice,
to hear.
nice pitch there, Brian. That's well done.
Subtle.
But
subtle.
it's like you just described then, and like I went through when I moved here, and Brian always tells me that he had the same experience up in Chicago. Is like this secret club of F1 that like there's lots of people have watched the F1 for a number of years in the US, but it's been like this little secret club that they don't talk to it. And it feels now you can go places and you can bump into F1 fans more readily, and it really feels like even in the only the 6 years I've been here that it's coming a little bit more mainstream now, and I'm all for that. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely trending in the right direction, like when in America itself. Um, like you said, the more places you go, the more things you see. You can go somewhere, you see somebody wearing a Mercedes hat or a Ferrari hat, and without even saying anything, you just know exactly who they're for or who they're against, and it's just really cool to see that nowadays.
So, how about you? Do you have a favorite team?
Yes, I am a Red Bull fan.
I see it on the T-shirt.
Yes.
And how did that come about? You just enjoy like when you started watching Max, you gravitated toward Max, or are you a really big Checo fan?
I'm more of a Verstappen fan, but it comes down to I've always liked Red Bull, like their extreme sports beforehand.
Yes.
I've always gravitated towards some of that stuff. So seeing that Red Bull had a driving team, I was like, oh, okay, well, there you go. I'm obviously going to be a Red Bull fan, and that just kind of took off from there.
I actually, I love their extreme sports stuff. I just saw recently there was a video from years ago of Tom Cruise running the Red Bull F1 car, and he did fantastic. But he wasn't there to do that. He wanted to take their extreme helicopter up and do a loop in it. And so that was what he was excited about. And I'd forgotten about all these other things that Red Bull does because I'm so focused on F1, but totally.
Some of the
So,
plane stunts they do are insane. I saw one recently with the dude flying a plane at high speed through a train tunnel. Like, what is all that about? Yeah,
awesome.
no, I mean, so that's a good. I mean, do you know what? Even if you decided that you'd watch Drive to Survive and you knew that Red Bull were good and you jump on and want to support the team that's winning, there's nothing wrong with that either. I think some people get too over defensive as to kind of like who you're allowed to support. It's like, what, everyone's got to support Williams or something when they first get into it and like do the hard miles first before they can pick their actual team. I'm like, nah.
So as you look at the season, 23, Max and Red Bull are obviously dominating, so you're enjoying that. But when you look at the rest of the grid, is there a team that you think is, for you, fun to watch, keep an eye on, the drivers, the team, whatever it may be? Is there anyone else you kind of say, hey, let me see what's happening with?
I've always, I think one of the first episodes of Drive to Survive I watched was with Gunther, and I don't know what it is about him. I just absolutely love Gunther, and ever since watching that, I think just the secondary team was always Haas. and being an American team as well, but like seeing them and kind of like being like an underdog, but sometimes they get it right, sometimes they don't. Most of the time they don't, and it's just watching them and I think just hoping that they do good.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agree. And so then as
He
you
was
look,
definitely sorry, Ron. He was definitely somebody that came out of Drive to Survive, where his stock was just. He went from kind of, if you were in the sport, you knew who he was, to I think he went to kind of just like legend.
well, what are they going to do for next season? Because they're filming now, and Danny Rick has retired, and I felt carried a lot of the character of Drive to Survive, and you know there were other drivers, of course, who really shined, but it's going to be the Gunther show at this point, right?
I sure hope so. Yeah, because just his one-liners that he says on there, I feel like they sort of make the show. But yeah, I'm not sure who exactly is going to fill the role of Danny Rick. He just brings such a joy and an enlightenment to the show, and without him, it's going to be a little weird. But hopefully they can find somebody to fill the shoes.
So
Yeah, it'd be interesting
fill the shoes
because
literally with some liquid.
yeah,
to
That's
drink.
true. Yes, the shoey.
because I also wonder if there's a little bit of because Danny Rick was such the obvious kind of comedy relief for it, they didn't have to worry about pursuing anybody else. I wonder if there'll be, I don't know, if it's Yuki or I'm sure there's other drivers that are fun to be around and goof around in the paddock when no one's kind of really watching that they've probably got material of, but they were like, nah, Danny's better. He's got a better smile. So maybe there isn't. Maybe there will be a new kind of Joker in the pack that kind of comes forward in the next season. You never know what they filmed and don't show versus what the reality is.
So, Justin, one more 23 question for you, buddy. So, as we look this season, you enjoy, obviously, Red Bull, and you got Max, and you cheer for Haas. Who do you have finishing second in the Drivers' Championship this year? Is it going to be Checo, or will Ferrari get their act together and Charles or someone come along? Is it someone in a Mercedes? Can Fernando capitalize on this?
I am really hoping that Fernando can. I think this year or possibly next year, I'm not sure about his contract, but I think it might be one of his last few seasons, and I'd really, really like to see him kind of get it together and come in second and even give Max a run for his money. As much of a Red Bull fan as I am, I love to see a competition.
Yeah.
So 2021, the battle back and forth, as controversial as it is, to see them battling back and forth, going win for win and being tied for points in the very last race. I really hope that Fernando can come in second and go on a good high.
It would be amazing. It would be amazing. Speaking of highs, often people enjoy the 100 seconds of DRS. See what I did there?
I did.
So obviously, you reached out on Twitter and said I'd be up for it. We appreciate that very much. We appreciate you, publicizing to all your F1 friends about this amazing podcast, but especially your I was going to say something else, performance here on the 100 seconds coming up. Now, unfortunately for you, the British guy's asking the questions this week, so it's he asked them fast. I'm too slow, he's too fast, but it's all up to you guys. So, Rob, are you ready?
I am, but the clue's in the title that we call it a rapid fire quiz. So I'm going to stand by my rapid fire and asking rather than the slow motion Brian version.
But, I mean, you're right. It is DRS, the fastest part of the race. I get it. Justin, my friend who's also spent time in Tarpon Springs, Florida, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I'm going to count you down in 3, 2, 1, begin.
First poster you had on your bedroom wall.
Star Wars.
Favorite F1 track.
Abu Dhabi.
What's your favorite cheese?
Pepper Jack.
Ferrari or Ford?
Ferrari.
Mario or Luigi?
Mario.
If you were in the pit crew, which tyre would you change?
Front right.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No.
Favorite livery of all time on an F1 car?
Red Bull White Suzuka.
Nice.
Yes. If you could add a James Bond style gadget to an F1 car, what would it be?
Grappling hook.
Batman style. Favorite musician or musical group?
Muse.
Favorite non-motorsport sport?
Golf.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Would you rather be chased by one horse-sized duck or 10 duck-sized horses?
10 duck-sized horses.
Mullets or mustaches?
Mullets.
Favorite F1 driver of all time?
Michael Schumacher.
Wet or dry race?
Dry.
If you could swap the cars out for a different type of transportation, what would it be?
Go buses.
Oh my gosh. Now you throw me that. New Year's Eve, big deal or nothing burger?
Nothing burger.
And what would you give the winners instead of champagne?
Ooh, let's give them whiskey.
Oh, yes. Favorite non-F1 sport?
Football.
All right, and that is time. That is time.
Oh, well done.
Buses. I would
Okay,
pay to see
buses.
F1 drivers in buses on the track.
I don't know where
that.
that came out of, but I feel like it'd be interesting.
Now, in my mind's eye, of course, I went to the good old style London red double-decker bus. I mean, that's what I had to visualize in. That
I
was
had
insane.
school buses in my mind, like a demolition derby situation, like just some stripped out yellow school buses, and they're all revving at the line. You know, got it in neutral, revving their engines, and then power drop into first and taking off.
Actually, you can combine two of Justin's answers, and you can have stripped out yellow school buses complete with grappling hooks to get around the hairpins.
if F3 feeds into F2 and F2 feeds into F1, what Justin described is the old video game F-Zero right there. That is the top of the pinnacle of motorsport right there.
Mm-hmm.
Max has to give up his Red Bull for a Red Bull school bus with grappling hook. Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Oh, man. Justin, thank you so very much for joining us and chatting. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you, man.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and thank you for doing an awesome job on the pod, both off and on the track.
Thank you so much. And so if you'd like to do the 100 seconds of DRS like Justin and show your creativity like he did, let us know. Hit us up on Twitter at F1DirtySide. Justin, thanks again, man.
Box.
Justin, thanks so much. That was tremendous. It was great catching up. And a couple guys who've lived in Tarpon Springs, Florida, just hanging out with Rob. What that was, basically.
It was funny because when he mentioned it, like your eyes kind of like on the video just kind of like lit up. You were like, I know that place.
I went to high school in that place.
No,
What are
you
the
told
odds
him. It's
of that?
I do find that insane that all the people in all the world and you two are basically know exactly the same tiny little town, which is insane. But what's not a tiny town?
The worst high school mascot. I've ruined just another segue. The worst high school mascot in America, the Spongers.
Just ruined another segue. What's not a tiny town is Miami, is where I was going. But oh no, Brian's still on his high school
Power through, tough
mascot sponges junk. But yeah, there we go. Right, Miami. Should we do that?
Yeah, Miami. So, Miami has 3 DRS zones now, supposedly. This is one where I could see them maybe taking one off as they do sometimes during the race week run-up. It's outside the Hard Rock Stadium track. Last year was the first time they had it. It's a 19-turn track. It is, I hate to say it, it's really built in a car park. I mean, it's not a track the rest of the year. It is a parking lot, and it's not really a street circuit. So it's like a hybrid kind of deal. I am an American. I'm proud to be an American. Proud to be American. I thought the race was boring last year, more so than you did.
Right.
I know you disagree with me a little.
I thought it was all right. I just thought it was. I thought, and it'd be interesting to see it this year now, is that it had absolutely zero chance of living up to the hype train that was put into motion before Miami rocked up last year. It was crazy. I know they won't, but I hope they dial the hype train just down a little bit as we kind of rock into Miami on Friday, but we won't. So if you can take that part away and just look at it as a race, it actually wasn't so bad last year.
It was okay at best.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't the worst and it wasn't the best. It was just okay. It sat nicely in the middle. Now, what's on its side this year is it's going to have to go some way to be a worse stinker of a nothing burger race than Baku just was, right? So, silver linings and all that.
I mean, I guess, but if we're coming off, actually, don't even forget about Australia, which was only spicy because of the crazy red flag situation. Otherwise boring. Baku, boring. Miami, they resurfaced it to hopefully make the racing better, and then it was underwater for 4 days in a row, so I don't know what that did to the track and the surface. They built some additional and moved some Paddock Club into the stadium. The fake marina now has 2 pools next to it, and maybe some little bit of an inch of water in some of the marina areas.
Again, you focus on the stuff that's got nothing to do with the racing. Who cares where the paddock club is? Who cares about the marina? Who cares about swimming pools?
I already talked about the track. They resurfaced it to make it better.
No, but you're like, oh yeah, Paddock Club, meh. Yeah, well, I don't care either. I don't tune in to watch the Paddock Club. So I can think it can build on last year's. I think it will probably be, and I'm happy if it's just another okay race. If we can get some decent battles and we don't get a hard tire snooze fest like we just had to endure today, then onwards and upwards, as they say.
Here's my worry, just as a tired man who watched a boring race. Between turns 16 and 17 is a very long straight. It is a very long straight in Miami, along that canal, along the. Red Bull is by far the fastest car. I have a sinking feeling, no matter who qualifies where, by the end of the first DRS-enabled back straight lap, a Red Bull will be in front and will drive away from everybody from that forward. Now,
I'm almost locked in for that for the rest of the season. You know my view on Red Bull and how dominant I think they're going to be.
Yeah.
So I've now kind of I'm okay with this. I've made peace with this. That Checo can take it to Max, and we get like two things that we need to keep an eye on now. The best of the rest, and we get some fantastic battles between Ferrari, Aston Martin, and Mercedes, and maybe McLaren come and play every now and again, or an Alpine throws a surprise entry up there. Great. Let's have some amazing best of the rest battles. If those two can keep exchanging wins, and that can be exciting for the title, cool. I've got to just divorce myself from any kind of hope that anyone else is going to really try and win a race this year, unless those two decide to take each other out, or we get some gold.
I hate to say it, I think you said it well.
So, yeah, thanks. So, today sucked because we didn't get any of that. That's why today sucked, right? Yeah. Checo did an amazing job, but Max didn't take it to him. So we didn't get any ding-dong battles up front, and we got a big serving of nothing burger in the best of the rest fight. So, thanks, Baku. Paul enjoys you as a city. We weren't there, so we didn't get to enjoy that bit. So we basically saw nothing of any use today. So we will double down, get ready for Miami, and yay, go Murica.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great week. Talk to you soon.